Blog Talk Radio.
You're tuned into In5D Radio, the next dimension in radio, where we bring you the hottest, in-depth, spiritual, metaphysical, esoteric conversations and news. Get ready for spirit, body, and mind to expand in 3, 2, 1.
Greetings, and welcome to Quantum Healing with Candace. I'm your host, Candace Craw-Goldman. This program was created to assist humans in this rapidly changing world, and its foundation is based upon the late, great Dolores Cannon's work and humanity's new understanding and acceptance of the quantum world and the role that our consciousness plays in shaping both not only our individual, but our collective realities. I'm a full-time practitioner of Dolores' method and had the honor and privilege of working with and alongside of her for several years. I'd like to thank not only In5D in its support of this show, Dolores' legacy, and all of those continuing for work and discoveries in healing. I would also like to thank our website of dedicated practitioners at DoloresCannonQHHT.com for sponsoring this show. Tonight is October 23rd, 2015. Just a little over a year ago, Dolores Cannon made her transition from the physical over to the spirit side. Tonight's show, and really all of our shows, but tonight's show especially, is dedicated to her. And tonight I have as my guest, not only on this show, but here at my farm, our farm, that we call Atira Moon in rural Kansas, two very special ladies. Joan Murray and Laura Casto are both level 2 dedicated practitioners. Their journey to become QHHT practitioners began when Dolores did a session for Laura, who had multiple terminal illnesses. She has an amazing story. And Laura and Joan both became very good and very special friends of Dolores. And I can't think of really any other people I would like to sit around my farmhouse dining room table tonight than you two to talk about Dolores and her memory. So thank you so much for being here, Laura. Thank you for being here, Joan.
Thank you for having me. It's so pleasure. Thank you.
Well, we've been together most of the day. I don't think we've shut up yet, have we? Do you have voice enough left to talk for the radio show?
I think so. Yes, I think so. We can put a nickel on us. We'll go all night.
That's great. Well, what we'd like to probably do is kind of start where Dolores says is always a great place to start, and that's at the beginning. So how about telling us your story? Just as much of your story as you would like to share tonight. How did you find out about Dolores Cannon? And tell us a little bit about your journey.
Well, I think the first time we met Dolores was at the UFO conference. And I wasn't familiar with her at all. I had seen an advertisement for the UFO conference, and Dolores Cannon and Joan, my partner, liked UFOs, and so I was dying at that time, sitting in my recliner, waiting to die, with no time or hope. And I thought this might be one last thing we could do together before I transitioned. And so we went to the UFO conference there in Arkansas. And Dolores was the keynote speaker. And I remember we bought a couple books of hers, and I walked up to her in my walker and my oxygen And we started visiting. I wanted her to sign a book, and she says, I can help you. And I will never forget looking into her blue eyes and believing her. And so she looked over at her assistant and told her to put me on the waiting list. And I thought, oh, well, good, I'm on the waiting list. The waiting list was 5 years then. And so to make a long story short, there was a cancellation, and about a month and a half later, 2 months later, I'm having a session with Dolores. I was very ill. Joan didn't think I could make the trip. And so I went in with a walker and on oxygen, and not really being familiar with QH quantum healing. And so I trusted Dolores, and she gave me back my life. And not only gave me back my life, but my children a mother, my grandchildren a grandmother, a partner for Joan. It's just been life-changing. It just ripples on and on infinitely. And then Joan and I became practitioners. And now I tell my story, and it helps my clients believe a little more. And so that's basically my story. I had my two lower lobes had collapsed in my lungs. I had a lot of lung problems, chronic pancreatitis. I had many problems, and most of them were all terminal. And my body was starting to shut down, and so Joan got me there just in time. And so I spent 7 hours with Dolores, and Joan dropped off a partner that was, she didn't even know if I was going to make it, the 7 hours with Dolores. And Dolores used to say how bad I looked. And then Dolores was so excited about seeing this miracle happen, seeing my color come back to my body, and seeing me breathe, take deep breaths, which I was never able to do that. And so my life has changed, and we're both practitioners now, and it was a promise I made to Dolores. I knew that I would never be able to repay her. How do you repay someone that gives you life? And so I told her that I wanted to be a practitioner and help others and spread the love and light and the healing. And so that's basically it in a nutshell. Johnny, do you want to add anything to it?
Well, I watched you cascade downward in a spiral, descending into sickness. And I know how sick you were. It was one doctor visit after another, unless we had to cancel because it was too hot or too cold or too windy or too dusty or whatever. One after another. And so I know how sick she was. I took her in there, and she was a train wreck. I went to pick her up, and she walks out toward me with pink cheeks. She's turning her neck. She's saying, look, babe, I can turn my head. She had such severe stenosis that she couldn't even turn her head when she walked into Dolores' office. And she said, look, I can take a deep breath. She was taking a deep breath. She couldn't say an entire sentence without taking a breath when she went in to see Dolores. The change was astounding. And then I was looking at her and I'm thinking, what happened? And then Dolores comes out and she was beaming. She's glowing her smile was glowing. She was so delighted for Laura. And then I found out that during the session, the oxygen concentrator failed because the power went out. And I would have flipped. I would have freaked out, but I wasn't there, thank goodness. And they just said, well, she doesn't need it anymore, and they just continued. And so I get this rosy-cheeked, frisky little woman coming out of Dolores' office, and I'm thinking, oh, my God, the world just changed. The world just changed. So we became practitioners. And you know how there was I don't even know how to say it. There was doubt, when you step outside your box and you don't know, but you hope so much. Well, I decided to trust too, and so I went in and said, take it over, and Dolores gave me back. Laura and her kids and grandkids. She's had more grandkids since then. And we're just so blessed and fortunate, and we're proud to be a part of it and be a part of the forum and all the help we've gotten from the forum. I don't post much, but I read and Laura reads. And we learn so much from there, and that's how we feel really connected with Dolores, is through our forum.
So Joni is speaking about our the original Dolores Cannon QHHT support forum, where practitioners get together and talk about sessions and offer each other suggestions and help and accolades, and that's how we got to be friends. And you were saying that Laura has more grandchildren and more time, and I get to have you guys here. So I really
get to be here. And to be here today.
To be friends.
And to be part of this whole amazing quantum healing machine of expansion into the universe. It touches so many things in so many ways.
Dolores was an amazing woman. If we can go back, Laura, a little bit, can you tell us a little bit more about your story? I know that that the oxygen, you had brought an oxygen machine that was plugged into the wall. Now, I know that because my mother right now is currently on such a machine, and it makes quite a bit of noise, and it needs electricity to keep going. And there's a part of your session that's pretty interesting that has to do with that oxygen machine. Will you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. Well, first of all, to explain what was going on with my lungs, I had silicone breast implant surgery back in 1984 because I had fibrocystic disease of the breast. That's what they did back then, with no second guessing. And they put these silicone implants under my pectoralis muscles. Well, they leaked into my lungs. So my lungs were full of silicone, and my whole body was full of silicone. And so it made it very difficult for me to breathe. And they put me on oxygen, and so, like I had said earlier, my two lower lobes had already collapsed. My lungs were my body was just shutting down. And so in quantum healing, hypnosis, you learn to have resolve from your issues, and there's such a correlation between our emotional issues and our physical issues. And so the ironic part about this was that Dolores was talking to me and saying, well, does Laura understand this lesson? Because I'd gone to a past life and I'd learned lessons from that. Does she understand that this is a carryover? Does she understand the connections of what's happening to her life now? Right when I said yes, almost to the second, the power went off. And you could hear my oxygen concentrator making a squealing sound in the other room. And Dolores says, what's that? And then what came through to me, and using my voice, was, oh, go turn it off. She doesn't need it anymore. And so Dolores came back in to the session room, and she had them start working on my lungs. And the minute they started working on my two lower lobes, I could take a long, deep breath. And I remember Dolores saying, just take a big, long, deep breath, Laura, and feel it. And I thought, I haven't been able to do this for years. And so it was just crazy how that happened. Oh, she doesn't need it anymore. Power goes off. Dolores and I are sitting there in the dark, and then no oxygen, and then I didn't need it anymore. It was great.
That's just amazing. You're sitting there in the dark because, of course, there's no light, there's nothing else happening, and you were dependent on that machine to breathe.
24/7, yes. And Dolores said as soon as they started working on my lungs and inflating my lungs, and then they did some irrigation down to get out the silicone and all the junk, she said my colors changed immediately. She saw it. She used to talk about, I saw it before my eyes. Laura's color came back. She completely changed after they worked on me, after I had the session. it was a wonderful experience. I'll never forget that. And
Laura, when you say they, I mean, can you explain to the people who are listening who might not know why we even use that term they? Why do you say they? Who's the they? How is this happening for you?
Well, it's some people. It's a energy that is that comes through, and some people call it our higher self, or our oversoul, or universal consciousness, or some people call it God or the source, whatever resonates with that client, and it knows anything, everything, and all about you, and it can do anything. And so Dolores used to say, I call them they because they speak in we. It's just, Candace, help me out here. I don't really know how to explain it.
You did a beautiful job. Yes, because it's often described as a collective and a greater power than just a singular human, but it can be various things. But yes, so I'd like to ask you, because I know a lot of our listeners out there talk about having sessions, want to have a session. Can you tell us what it was like for your conscious mind during the session? During the session, was your conscious mind? And we don't have a screen on, but Joan is like laughing very hard, quietly over at my left. I'd like to. I don't think I've ever asked you that question before. I'm very curious. Was your conscious mind along for the ride here?
Very much so.
And tell me what that was like.
Well, and here again, we were not familiar with the method. We met Dolores at the UFO conference, and then she spoke about it. So I had done no reading whatsoever. I was completely clueless, and I went in there, and I'm sort of an independent woman, so and I don't ask for help. That was one of my lessons for this life. And so when Dolores started doing the session and wanting to call in the subconscious or the energy, well, I didn't know, and I thought, well, do I do it? And I interrupted Dolores 14 times.
Did you count, really?
Well, on my session, I listened to my session a lot, and I interrupted her 14 times, and she was so patient. She was my last.
Wait a second. Okay. I got. What do you mean you interrupted her 14 times? What do you mean?
She would be calling in the subconscious, the higher self, and my conscious mind, was thinking, well, what do I do?
What are you supposed to do?
What am I supposed to do? So, of course, Laura jumped in and would start talking, and then Dolores would say, I'm speaking to the subconscious. And then Dolores would shift her voice and say it a little louder, and then my subconscious would come through. But 14 times. And finally, the last time, I remember they were working on my thyroid, and Dolores says, well, let's just call him in. And I said, so I started saying, well, yeah, I'll call him in or whatever. And she says, no, the subconscious. So I'd had enough of, I thought, what am I doing wrong? So then I finally said to Dolores, well, am I supposed to call him in, or do they call him in, or what do I do? And she says, yeah, I know, Laura's been busy interrupting me. And then she said, all Laura has to know is this is not her responsibility. And I remember thinking, oh, that's good. And then she said, I want Laura to just lie there, relax. I thought, I can do those two things. And then the two hard words came. Then I want you to allow and receive. And I thought, can I do this? And then I had this dialogue with myself, you better do this or you're going to be crossing over. And so I just surrendered to Dolores then. And then that's when things start happening too.
How, Laura, did it feel when some of those things were happening, when some of the, like you said, the subconscious, the higher self was cleaning out your lungs or cleaning out your the silicone and inflating your lower lungs, and the color was coming. What were you feeling? Were you feeling anything inside?
Yes, I felt heat and energy, and then I could visually see the light. I mean, it was just, and sometimes Dolores would say, well, tell me what's going on, and of course then Laura would step in and say, well, I feel light and energy, and Dolores earned her money that day. But I felt I could tell what part of my body they were working on, and light and energy and heat. And could feel it.
And did that surprise you? I mean,
yes.
Were these very surprising things for you?
I didn't know what to expect, so it was just go with it. I just knew to go with it. Mm-hmm. And Dolores I was with Dolores for 7 hours, and so she talked to me for about 4 hours, and the session was a little over 2, and then she talked to me for another hour. But yes, I went in to that session being a victim, and I came out a changed woman, learning about agreements, and since then, Joan has done the session on me and what came through. Well, if this was an agreement, you had an agreement to do this so that you can have a testimony of the healing, and it works. And so if I had it to do over, I would go through it. I would sit in my house for 7 years again.
That's not a small thing to talk about. You and I were talking about health before dinner, and I was telling you that I had experienced being bedridden, but just during pregnancy and not near as long as you. And 7 years, Laura, is a long,
very long time. And I remember there were times that I just could never go outside. And so we just stayed in because it would exacerbate my asthma. And so I remember on my 60th birthday, because the kids knew I was dying, my daughter, I loved to eat at Red Lobster years ago, and she got off the good china, invited us over, and she says, Mom, stay in the room, the back bedroom. I'm getting a little choked up here, but I went out there, and there was all crab legs and everything all around the table. And she knew I couldn't go to a restaurant, so she brought it to me. And that's love.
That is love.
And so I think Dolores talked about this on one of her videos about the kids saying they have their mother back. But I think the most defining time after my session was probably a few days after we had gotten back. And I didn't talk to the girls about this because they would have thought it was too much out of the box. And so I walked in, and Brooke, my oldest daughter, says, Mom, you look different. And she knew my color and everything had changed. What's going on? You look different. Well, then Joan and I told her. And then she came over to me. I mean, she's a physical therapist. She knows about death, and she works, with many types of people. She knew I didn't have much time. She grabbed a hold of me and did a Dolores Cannon hug, and she says, oh, I have my mother back. And I said, yes, I'm back. And so it was just a very defining session, wasn't it, Joan?
Mm-hmm. Joan, when did this take place? When did you have your session? What year was this?
Oh, I don't remember.
3 or 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Couple years, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know, several years ago.
Yeah.
Well, I know that one of the stories that Dolores tells is not long after the session, I guess, was then the Transformation Conference, and you showed up there. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, 13 days later. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh, just 13 days later. Yeah, tell that
13 days later. Well, it wasn't without a few bumps in the road to go to the Transformation.
23 days later. That was the 20th, and it was on the 20th. Okay. I don't remember. Yeah.
So she's had her session with Dolores. Things have changed dramatically. She's continuing to improve. So we go to the Transformation Conference because now we know who Dolores is and what it's all about. And so we don't have to pack everything up, and we just can get up and go. But it was a little bit difficult because she had tripped and cracked her kneecap. Now,
that wasn't the transformation.
Yeah.
It was level 1.
That was level 1. So we go to the Transformation Conference, and Dolores sees her and just lights up the same way she did when she came out of the session. And every time Dolores would see Laura, she would just beam and hug her in the big bear hug. And they had such a connection. And I can vouch for Laura's illnesses as being valid because I'm the one who took her to the doctor. I talked to them about that. You know, they're talking hospice. I'm not liking that.
Didn't they say something about medically retiring? I mean, you were told to medically retire. Can you explain what that term means and how often it was told?
3 times. 3 times they wanted me to medically retire.
And what does medically retire even mean?
Because of your health, you cannot continue to work.
You can't work. You can't do your job. You can't do what you were trained for. You can't get out of the house to even get there. And so she was medically retired.
Mm-hmm.
But to address the issue of her lungs, a week after that, she had a checkup with her primary doctor. And he took a chest X-ray, and she said, "How are those lower lobes?" He said, "Oh, they look good." And they had not been ventilating air hardly at all. You just couldn't hear her moving air in them. And it seems to be, your neck, the stenosis in her neck. She used to not be able to turn her neck. And a subsequent X-ray said didn't say anything about stenosis. They didn't see any stenosis in there.
Just gone.
Just gone.
And it's like an arthritis in the bones in your neck. And my mom has that too, and I know how difficult, how painful that is.
It flattens my. That's why I was on a walker, because it flattened my spinal cord. And the doctor said you cannot fall because that part of your neck or your spinal cord. It regulates your heart and lungs. So if you fall and sever that, you're dead. So they put me in a walker. And like I said, I fell, I don't know, it was before level 1. It was in November. I don't remember when it was, but I had my hands in my pocket in the parking lot, and I stumbled and fell and broke 3 ribs in my kneecap. And they x-rayed me everywhere, and there was nothing in my neck up there.
Okay,
that saved my life again.
Okay, so I have to ask about that. I mean, did you explore? Do you have an idea? Why the heck did you have to do that? Was that to get the X-ray? What was that about?
We found out in level 1 when we practiced our sessions. They said, well, we just put a little bump on her step because she's still fighting the lesson on asking for help. And then it gave Joni a chance to take care of me again. And so, yes.
But you're right. It did give us an opportunity to have an X-ray and compare an X-ray. And so it came with the thyroid. There was a cyst. It was substantial. And when she went back, she couldn't find it. Pancreatic cysts. They can't find them now.
Well, I have cysts in my
thyroid, and then one in those in your pancreas, and they're not showing up now.
It's just amazing how your life has changed. And earlier you said that you didn't think that you could thank her. I think the work that you're doing now, carrying on her work, and her mission, and her light, her great big heart, helping everyone. You are absolutely carrying on her work, and you are very, very special. Both of you are special, but you're very special because you publicly have come forward with your story. We all know that there are others out there who have incredible stories, very similar, if not, identical to the kind of recovery that you've made. And yet people out there are still very fearful about what friends or family or coworkers or others will say or how they will judge them. And I was very curious about this until I realized that people are very much affected by others' opinions. And so I don't judge or blame those who receive the miracles from QHHT not sharing them. But there are people out there, many people, and I get lots of calls, and people ask questions on websites and whatever, and they say, where's the proof? Where are all the people who are being healed? Again, Laura's holding up her hand here across the dining room table. There are so many of them out there, but very many of them are keeping the miracles close to their chest, and they're keeping quiet about it for any number of reasons. And but that, again, is what makes you so special, because Laura Casto and Joni, you know, you're just part of that because of everything you've done to help Laura be there. But when I have sat in session upon session upon session, year after year, I get to tell your story. Mm-hmm. And I get to point to, you know, your testimonials, and I get to talk about the fact that you are walking around a happy, healthy grandma and helping other people. Mm-hmm. Now, and you were in a wheelchair and multiple walker and multiple organ system failure, and told, you know, to go home and enjoy yourself, and everything has changed since then.
I was on liquids for a year because I had chronic pancreatitis. Oh my gosh. Down there. And so after our session, Dolores says, well, you need to eat something, and we found a Subway, and I remember downing. I hadn't had solid foods for a year, and I downed a sub sandwich. Remember that, Joan? I just now remembered that.
Oh my gosh, I have never heard that part of this story.
I didn't remember that.
Okay, now hold on. That's significant.
That's significant too.
You know, people have been on liquid diets maybe for a week if they had the flu. You were on a liquid diet for a year.
2 ambulance rides to the hospital with chronic pancreatitis, and I found out since then that the silicone affects your pancreas, and so that's what was happening. And so I was on enzymes and liquid. I juiced. That's all I could. I couldn't handle shakes or anything. I just juiced. We bought a juicer, and so yes, I wasn't used to any food, and so. That's the first place we saw was Subway.
Okay, just for fun, do you remember what you ordered?
I think it was a veggie sandwich. Yes. I don't remember. I just remember eating it very quickly. And I remember being very emotional. Dolores' love, when Dolores does a session, I've never felt that love before in my life, and it's the combination of the energy coming through, and Dolores did everything with just pure unconditional love, and she accepted me with all my flaws and misgivings and not knowing this and not knowing that. She taught me during the interview, and also set me straight on a few things too, which I had to take a piece of humble pie with that, but it helped me get better. And so she was, it's just the level of love with a quantum healing session is just off the wall, because as practitioners we all drop down to love, and we're here to help others. And
so now you two ladies are so busy doing sessions. And so Joan and Laura live in Moore, Oklahoma, and you know, Moore, Oklahoma has become very famous for its tornadoes. Oh, I think there's some stories coming up here. Anyway, yes, that's all right. Yeah, but people are showing up in Oklahoma City, all kinds of people, to have sessions with both of you. Yeah. Now, let's hear from you a little bit, Joni. What's going on with your practice now? You two swap sessions and you take clients. Tell us a little bit either about Dolores or some of your sessions, something you might want to share. You know, we're remembering Dolores today.
Well, we were talking about how much an invalid Laura had been. And when Moore was hit by that devastating tornado in 2013, we went out in the debris field and the dust, and there's no shade and sweat and heat and rubble everywhere, and we delivered meals to the people who were working on cleanup. And before she wouldn't have, for 5 weeks, and before she would not have been able to leave the house, let alone go out and climb over the clods and the debris to take food to people and ice water and after the tornado.
You guys are just angels. I mean, your hearts are so, so big.
Well, I'll tell you, we had people come to our town from all over the country and even other parts of the world, and we were so grateful. And with that tragedy of those people losing their lives and their property and how torn up it was unbelievable how it looks. You just can't wrap your head around it. but so much love and kindness and generosity came to us from that, and that you need that. You can't give, you can't help unless someone needs it and is willing to receive it. And we needed it, and we were grateful to receive the help from all over those people. People came from Joplin, people came from Sandy Hook, people came from Hurricane Sandy, people came from Katrina. They knew what it was like, and they came all the way to work in the dirt and the dust and the heat to help us, and we were so grateful to them.
I've got goosebumps all over my body as you're telling me this story because, people whose hearts have been broken open by tragedy gravitate towards others who see some tragedy and then the necessity of showing up and offering support and bolstering each other up. Just beautiful.
And the news spent so much time on the negativity and they put a focus, when you put it under a magnifying lens, what the bad stuff going on in the world seems huge. But when you look around in your own world, sometimes you see so much good. You see Dolores' light. Wherever you think the light comes from, you see it when you look in your world and you want to participate in that. And so you gravitate toward that and you live there. That's where you live. That's 5D. You're 3D and you're supposed to be here, but 5D is living in love and extending yourself to other people with love and without the judgment. And, the 3D people are going to do their thing. And, I'm 3D.
You're 3D sometimes.
I called over in a you may remember it at one of the reunions, the way to raise your vibration, which is a lot of us want to do. We want to not have to participate in a world that has so much cruelty and negativity in it. So the way to do it is to be yourself, love yourself, plant your feet in the 3D by loving yourself, those around you, and the earth that raises everybody up. And so I work with special ed kids, so I'm very grounded in my 3D world, and I am grateful to them every day for what they teach me.
How about a favorite memory of Dolores from you, Joni?
That was seeing her walk out of that office with that smile on her face. And every time she'd see Laura, the way she'd light up, it's hard to describe. It's just like this light bursting out from her. And I remember seeing her, she'd stand beside the podium, and I just, you just picture it, and I can feel like she's here, and I do feel like she's connected and close to us. And I thank her every day. I'm so grateful.
And excuse me, but she came through in the Kindle last night, right?
Oh my goodness! I turned on my Kindle last night, and I'm going to check the weather. So I put on the Silk browser, and usually the tab that pops up is my 10 hours of thunder and rain, because that's what I need. I need white noise in my background when I sleep. And what pops up but Dolores Cannon, interview on the Moore Show. And it's like, where did that come from? I hadn't, that wasn't on there. It wasn't bookmarked, because I went to bookmark it to see if it was bookmarked, and it wasn't. So I don't know how it came on there, but I guess I really do, because Dolores said, yeah, okay, go have a good time with Candace's. Yeah, okay, yeah, I'm still here.
Dolores sends lots of messages, often red birds are the messages, and there's some stories there. Do you have any red bird stories, ladies?
Yeah, we were, she was anxious about a session. We were sitting in our backyard, and her kids were over, and she was anxious about a session. She was saying something to me about it, and I said, look on the wire up there. Red bird. I said, you're going to be all right. And actually, when we were driving to her memorial, we're driving down the highway to go to her memorial in Arkansas, and a red bird right across the front of the car. We see them now quite often, especially when we're talking about her or thinking about her. They'll come to the bird feeder. And, we see red bird, and you see a red bird, everything's okay.
I have a story to tell. I dreamed of Dolores quite often, and I had a dream, but I couldn't remember if how you can't remember your dreams. Well, so I walked out into the dining room, and we had our patio chairs up next to the dining room window, and this little cardinal just she just flies up and gets on one arm and then jumps to the other side of the lawn chair, went through 3 lawn chairs to get clear over to the end of the picture, the window, and turned around and got as close to that glass as she could and stared right in. And I just said, "Oh, hello, Doris." And, I know better than to doubt anymore. I mean, she always is with us. And
clients, she'll come through clients occasionally, whether you ask or not.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the client will just say, "Dolores is here." So, okay.
She always comes in with a smile on her face. Have you noticed that, Candace, with your sessions?
She's very funny in session.
It is very funny.
She definitely has a sense of humor, and so in case anybody's joining us late, Laura and Joni made the trip up from Oklahoma to Kansas for a little visit here at a Tiramoon farm. And one of my favorite already memories to talk about is as I was showing them their room and where they needed to stay, and we're sitting there chatting, and of course we're talking about Dolores. And do you remember what happened?
Well, the light crackled and it went off, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We were talking about Dolores and talking about her being here and being nearby and supporting, we had goosebumps all over our bodies talking about different connections and ideas and things we were discussing and events in the world and our work. And I think it was Laura who said, "And I think Dolores is right here." And as soon as she said that, the hallway light went zzzz, zzzz, and it like blinked, And we're like, "Yeah, I guess she's here."
And we both got goosebumps. Total body goosebumps.
Absolutely, yeah. So, the interesting thing about Dolores Cannon, if I may speak for a moment, not only is she visiting and communicating with her family, her QHHT practitioners, whom she always called her students, but she's also communicating with others. She's communicating with potential clients of practitioners. She's just communicating with fans. And in the most astounding of ways, she's also communicating with people who don't even know who Dolores Cannon is. This is kind of, she's only been gone a little more than a year, so we're starting to collect this kind of information. But what Dolores Cannon did during her lifetime was she understood and she discovered, and she was poised in such a beautiful way to reach through time and space and communicate not only with individuals and their higher selves, or what she called their subconscious, or other lifetimes or other lives or other existences, but especially the way she communicated with the very famous Nostradamus. That was a new kind of communication. There's much to be discovered there. There's much, even though those books are written long ago and Dolores is now gone, there is much information coming through sessions where we're understanding that the way she communicated with him is very important for us now, meaning us as humanity. We can reach through time and space and communicate with other beings. We can reach through time and space and communicate with other life forms, so many different ways. And one of the most astounding things for me is to receive a phone call or an email from somebody who has absolutely no history or knowledge of Dolores Cannon, and then says somebody with that name showed up in either a dream or a meditation or some sort of phantom text or email, and they're getting these communications from nowhere, and they're woken up. They're sent on a mission either to find out more about their own life or their family or their life path or something like that. So Dolores Cannon, who was this amazing woman who figured out communication first, just from the past, and then from parallel lives, and then, with ETs and other planets, and then other dimensions and other worlds and other realities. Now, from the place where she is, she's expanding in such an amazing way. And all you have to do, any of you out there, even if you've never met her, never took a class from her. You can ask to connect with her and learn from her, and some amazing things can happen. I did this just with my own mother just this past week, and I'll tell that story right now, and then I'll let you get back and tell it. But this is a great story about my mom. So, my mom was older than Dolores, and if you'd asked me a year or more ago who was going to go first, I would have told you, well, of course my mother is, but that's not in fact what happened. Dolores left a little more than a year ago. My mother's still here. She's in what I would consider the early stages of transition from the physical, but she's up and down, comes back and forth. And the other day when I woke up, it was just 2 or 3 days ago, I woke up and I heard Dolores tell me as I was waking, and that's the theta state, and that's the connection, that's where you're connected, and you can hear into these other realms. And I heard Dolores say, tell your mother she can talk to me. All she has to do is ask, and she can talk to me. And I thought, okay, that's interesting. So a couple of days ago when I was at my mother's house, I took the opportunity to tell her, Mom, Dolores said that you can talk to her. And she looked up at me and she said, there was a lady in my room last night. And I said, there was? And she said, yes. She said, I looked at her and I said, this is my mother saying this. My mother said, I looked at her and I said, hi, is your name Doris? And she said the lady looked at her and said, no, my name is Dolores. And Dolores, who had been called Doris, more than one time in her life, I'm sure, really didn't have anything else to say to my mom, but yet I was very surprised, I was really surprised, and I was gratified, and I said, okay, Mom, I said, Mom, all you have to do is just imagine talking to Dolores, and you can be doing that, and that's the same advice I'm giving any of you who might be listening, who might be interested in that. And so I told my mom that story. I said, just imagine her talking to you, and when you imagine that's her talking. And she said, oh, and I said, and also often her calling card is a red bird. And Mom really didn't say much of anything, and I really didn't know if she even heard me. And then when I was there just yesterday, the hospice nurse was there. Now, that's already an amazing thing. This hospice nurse is named Angel. Of course her name is Angel. She's an angel. She's a beautiful angel, and every time she comes to my mom's bedroom and speaks with her and spends some time with her, my mom perks up. And I was there yesterday when Angel showed up for the visit, and I was just working in the corner, watching and observing their visit. And when Angel came in, and Angel looked at Mom and said hi, and Mom perked up and sat up in bed and looked at Angel and said, oh, Angel, I'm so glad you're here. I didn't think about this. I actually forgot about it till just now, but guess what? I had a dream about Ruby. And so I stopped typing on my computer, and I look up over at them, and I'm wondering who Ruby is. And Angel sits down next to Mom. Mom practically leaps out of bed. This is the woman, remember, who's in the hospice, who, is occasionally like, it seems like she's going to just go any minute, and then other times she's like, practically skipping through the house. It's a very strange time. But she sits up, she's animated, she's excited, and she starts to tell Angel about her dream of Ruby. Now, Ruby, and I have no idea who Ruby is at this point. So I'm just watching, and she says, Ruby came to me, and he sat, and he looked at me deep in my eyes, and he just kept asking me, what is your name? What is your name? And my mom said, my name is Eva. My name is Eva. And I'm very interested about all of this. And then Angel says something like, I think I can bring Ruby by for a visit. And at this point, I'm guessing it's a pet, right? I mean, it's just the way they're talking. I'm guessing it's a pet. And they start talking about some other things like that. And Angel starts saying, I need to bring Ruby by in December. I'm going to drop him off at a very special kennel that's not far from you that can take care of him when we go on our trip. And then they started talking, and then it became very apparent. And Mom said, Angel, show Candace Ruby's picture. And then Angel pulls out her cell phone and shows me this picture of the most beautiful, big, red bird. And I guess it's a macaw. It's a beautiful bird, beautiful red, and of course, very, very red, golden red color bird. And then Mom starts talking again about her dream. And she says, in my dream, it was like Ruby had a light inside of him, like he was glowing.
Oh, my God.
Like he was this amazing, magical bird.
Oh.
And that's when I knew that there was more and more connection with Dolores here. Mm-hmm. And that's just such a gift. Thank you for letting me tell the story.
Oh, thank you for telling it. We love that story. We love that story. It shows how they're connected. I mean, Dolores is everywhere, and she's helping your mother. It's a wonderful story.
Mm-hmm. So lots of our clients have bird stories as well. For instance, I had a client not too long ago who she had a life as a mermaid, and she was just opening up herself to the idea of past lives. And she had a regular past life experience, and then in a subsequent scene in this exploration, she changed into seeing herself as a mermaid. And this really was quite outside of what she was expecting. Even though she had read about this sort of thing, it wasn't something she readily expected for herself. She kind of thought, well, I think other people can be mermaids, but, I'm just going to be a regular person anytime I have a past life. And she had this life as a mermaid, and it really threw her for a loop. Now, for people who do this work, past life regression in the Dolores Cannon method of QHHT, a mermaid isn't all that unusual.
Not at all. No.
As a matter of fact, I've had many mermaids, and, not all that unusual, but for her and for her perspective, it was quite unusual, and that's fine. So she was just digesting this and really not quite understanding how she needed to think about this. And she drove quite a little distance from my wellness studio here in Augusta, Kansas, towards central and western Kansas home. And she said that she got home and her husband had made her dinner, and they were eating it outside on the deck because it was a nice, cool evening. And she started to tell him about this experience that she had. So she told him about the first past life, and the first past life was a pretty standard one. She was a Native American person, and some of the story there, I think, was that some strangers showed up, etc. But then the next scene she was shown, she was a mermaid. So she started telling him, and in a very kind of, halting way, because she wasn't sure how he was going to take it. These are people who have, quite a traditional religious background, and she wasn't even quite sure how he was going to take it. But she started to tell him, and she said, I really think that this is something that I experienced in another life, and I believe that it's important. And she said at that moment, while she was feeling free enough to share this experience that she was this mermaid with her husband, not more than a foot from them on the rail of the deck, a cardinal came and just landed there. She said it wasn't any more than like a foot from them and their table. And she said they both stopped talking, and they just looked at this bird, because a cardinal, and anybody who knows birds, a cardinal is actually quite a shy bird. robins, sparrows, some other hummingbirds. They will come close to people, but cardinals are quite shy. They don't normally come that close to humans. And here's this bird right there.
Wow.
And she said they both stopped talking, and the bird just sits there and looks at them back and forth through their eyes, back and forth for just a little while. She said, it was minutes. They both just stopped, and the bird's just there for minutes. And then she said the bird finally flies off, and they continued to be speechless for a few minutes after that. And then she started talking about that I had talked to her about that because I have some cardinal and some red bird images in the studio. And she emailed me and she said, "Tell me the truth. Do you believe me?" Well, of course I believe you. And then she said, "What does that mean?" And then, of course, I have the wonderful, amazing opportunity to tell her that I believe that is Dolores Cannon's spirit coming through in association with the nature spirit of a cardinal to provide the message of confirmation to her that it was not only a true and real past life of a mermaid that she, experienced, but that it was okay to tell that experience to her husband.
Mm-hmm. I agree. That kind of validation comes, you hear it from clients all the time, the strange things that happen, and they think, they're thinking, it's a coincidence, but no, it's not a coincidence when you have so many. Mm-hmm. And you're talking about people who just discovered Dolores, and they just discovered Dolores out of nowhere. Somebody tells them about Dolores, and then they find out she's transitioned, and it's like they're so disappointed because they're so excited about her. So we're getting a lot of clients who are really new to even the idea of Dolores, and they're jumping right on board. Mm-hmm. It's not like they've studied for years and years and they've been aware of her, but it's like there's just this magnetic attraction to Dolores and the work she's done and what can be achieved with this technique. And as practitioners, we help the individuals achieve their own goals and answer their own questions. We don't give you the answers. We're not channelers. We're not mediums. We're facilitators of a person to find their own truth with their own higher self, inner wisdom, guidance of God, angels, whatever you want to call it. But people find out stuff that maybe they kind of knew or they didn't know at all. And it comes through and it's like, bam, should I leave my boyfriend? Yes. When now? It comes through. They can be very emphatic.
That's interesting. I don't know why, but it's you saying that. I'm remembering a story of a man who came and he sat and talked to me about his very, very rough relationship he had with his wife. I mean, it was rough. They would fight. They would lock each other out of the house. I think one of the stories that he told me, one of the recent ones, was they were on their way somewhere and he got mad and she said, "Get out of the car," and he did, and he was 5 miles away from anywhere. I mean, it was just one of those drama, awful kind of stories. I mean, he spent more than 2-3 hours talking about, and one of the reasons he was there was, am I supposed to get out of this? I mean, and it just, if you would have listened to this interview from this man's perspective, it really sounded like, well, maybe these two might be better living in two different places than what they've gone through. I mean, they put each other through hell. There was some really mean and disrespectful and unloyal things on both sides, and it was awful. And I'm thinking, this is where it's amazing being a practitioner, right? Because you think, well, gosh, maybe you guys need to do the forgiveness exercise and go on and go, figure it out and have some peaceful lives somewhere else. And you know what? In that session, that man discovered how much he loved his wife.
Yes.
And he didn't know it, and I didn't know it. But in that session, he found out how they were absolutely perfect for each other, even though they were going through what they were going through, the hoops and the jumps and all of the stuff that they were going through. And the SC, the higher self, was explaining how every one of these huge events didn't break them up. That even though it's like they were testing and whereas normal couples or regular or whatever other people might sort of show up, might decide to throw in the towel, they would always find themselves back together again, not able to imagine life without each other. And he left with confirmation that he was absolutely in the right place. And he also actually was quite a devout Catholic, and so he saw himself in that framework as a large sinner. He had done some things that were absolutely sins, and he said he was just afraid that Jesus didn't love him anymore.
Oh.
And actually, I wrote about this on my blog. Jack Jesus and the Jouncing Walls is the name of this blog story. But the amazing thing is this was his biggest issue. Past his wife was, Jesus, I can't even go into church anymore. I've done too many bad things. Jesus doesn't love me or whatever. And Christ shows up in the session.
Oh my goodness.
And Christ says, the light of Christ, the amazing light of Christ, and all he does is lay there and he's crying. The big tears are coming out of his eyes, and he said, and then he whispers, through his thoughts, he says, Jesus is here. And we as practitioners, we're so blessed. We get to watch these amazing things, and we get to feel the energy of Christ consciousness show up in these sessions. And we're sitting there, and I'm sitting there and watching this, and he's sobbing, and all of a sudden I see his hand from the bed. His hand rises up, and his hand rises up and takes the heart of Jesus. Jesus takes his own heart out of his chest, puts it in his hand, and then he takes Jesus' heart and puts it in his own body.
Wow, that's moving. I have goosebumps here.
Well, let me tell you. You say it's moving, Laura? Let me tell you about how moving it was. Right as he does that, he's putting Jesus' heart. I mean, he's crying. He's saying, Jesus is giving me his physical heart because Jesus was physical. Mm-hmm. He's giving me his physical heart. He's putting it in his chest. And all of a sudden, and you've been in my studio, it's an old brick building, more than 150, 200 years old. I'm not even remembering right now. 30, 40 years old, something like that. Solid brick walls. All of a sudden, the brick walls start shaking.
Oh, my goodness.
And the sand and the mortar start coming off the walls, hitting the floor. And I'm thinking, and see, I'm actually going to the logical place because we have trains nearby. And I'm thinking, okay, some big, heavy train is going by with, like, military equipment or coal cars or something. But I'm not hearing it, but I'm thinking that's the only thing that can shake this building like this. That's when we had that earthquake.
Oh,
it was at that moment, I think it was a 4.6 earthquake. It was one of the biggest earthquakes that we'd ever had on, and it was the center was somewhere between where you live and where we live. Mm-hmm. It shook the whole building right then. Isn't that amazing?
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that story. That is amazing.
That's just crazy stories. So, we talk a little bit about Kansas and Oklahoma. Not too many people think about Kansas or Oklahoma being a spiritual hotbed. And we definitely want to talk about the kinds of sessions that you've had there in Oklahoma. You've said you've had some really interesting ET ones lately, haven't you?
Well, Laura's had more ET ones lately. And it's interesting that they do come in clusters. They do seem to come in clusters.
They do come in clusters. and I have had several abductees coming and asking for help. Females that have been in the program, the egg harvesting program. I don't know the correct name for that. And during this session, we'll find out that they do have hybrid children, and through this technique, they're allowed to make arrangements to see their hybrid children, whether it's in a dream or whatever. But sometimes I feel like I'm talking to the ETs, having a direct conversations with the ETs, and so it's the thing I like about the quantum healing hypnosis, Dolores Cannon's method, is that every session is different. Every session is different. And you get to go with them wherever they go.
And some people are so vivid in their descriptions, it's like having that, it feels like your own session. You're there with them. And you don't necessarily get what you want. You don't necessarily get what you fear. You don't necessarily get what you expect, but you usually get what you need. Mm-hmm. And we've had sessions, she's done them on me, and I expect I'm planning my happy place, and all this is I'm going to go to my beautiful place, and then go off on a tangent. So what you think you're going to do is not necessarily what you're going to do. Mm-hmm. And it can take you anywhere. Mm-hmm. Anywhere. Mm-hmm. And you can try to imagine, like I tried to plan what was going to happen, and it just didn't go that way at all. It just didn't go that way at all.
And that's because you allowed it to go.
Yeah, I did. You know, I thought, what's going on here? I mean, I get on a cloud, and my cloud always moves west to east. My cloud goes west to east. Here was one, and she's putting me up on the cloud, and my cloud turns north. And I'm thinking, north? I never go north. I always go west to east. This is where my cloud
like a good Oklahoma girl.
Exactly. You know where the wind blows. And so it goes north, and I'm thinking, why am I going north? I end up in Mongolia. I'm a reindeer herder in Mongolia. And I went north because the circle, the closest way, the shortest distance to get to Mongolia is over the north pole. That's shorter, faster to get there. So my cloud actually knew how you would fly a plane if you wanted to get there faster instead of going around Europe and everything in that way, because it takes a longer time. I looked on the globe.
So that's one of the amazing things about being a practitioner and being around others. You get to have your own sessions. What was that session about? Do you care to tell us a little more?
That session, I don't remember what that was about. I remember I was a reindeer herder, and I came in and I saw my boots, and they were leather boots, or animal skin boots. I had a big cloak on. I had something in my hand. It took me a while to figure out what it was. It's just like a staff. I thought it was like a bow or a spear or something, because I see all these reindeer. I'm a hunter. Oh no, I figured out I was a reindeer herder. Those were my reindeer, and that's why they weren't running around, and I wasn't trying to spear them any at all. So then she takes me to the house. Where do you live? So I go, and it looks like a yurt. So I figured, oh, okay. Looks like a yurt. It had a little taller top on it than I expected based on images I'd seen. But so, okay, I go in the yurt and I walk in. There's this beautiful woman. She's over a cook stove, and she has a pot, and she's cooking something, and it smells so good. Oh, my gosh. I smelled it.
You can smell it right now.
She looked up at me and smiled, and you asked something about how do you feel about and that was my wife, and I said, oh, she's a good cook. So I'm thinking I should be saying, oh, I love her, she's the most beautiful woman. Oh, she's a good cook is what came out of my mouth. So and then we moved forward to some other days, and there was a day when we were gathering together. We were nomadic people, but there was a time when we were gathered together at a certain season, and we were talking about something, and then it got serious, and there's something, I knew something was wrong, something wasn't going to be right, and the marauders came through, and it was probably like a Genghis Khan kind of thing, and I couldn't find my wife. I think almost everybody was killed, everything was destroyed, and I couldn't find her, and I didn't know where she was. I didn't even know she was dead. And so I lived a longer life. I had injuries, but I lived a longer life. And when I transitioned, I was very old, and I went to spirit side, and there she was. And I put my arms around her, And, and she's saying, well, what do you do next? And I just have my arms locked around her. And they're saying, well, we're going to go here, review this, review that. And I said, I'm not letting go. I'm not letting go. And I said, okay, you guys can go and rest for a while. And I wasn't going to let go because I was so long without her. And we've had lives. That was me. That was you. She was Laura was like my wife in that life. And we've had that good.
Are you a good cook now, Laura?
She's probably a better cook than I have my life. But it was interesting because I have always feared the session when they tell me how I'm evil.
That's pretty common, and sometimes we see that, but it's not as common as you.
They kind of came in the back way because I got information that I was experiencing that life, how it felt to be the victim of the marauders because I had been one, and that was the counterpoint to that life. And so they didn't have to show me. They didn't show me that, but I understood it then, and I didn't have to go through that trauma of experiencing what I had been doing. So that's kind of what you see. You see the balance. Call it karma if you want, but the yin and yang of the wanting to have an experience. How do you know what this type of life is if you haven't experienced something different? And so you get a lot more information from the session than you realize when you think. And a year later, something can pop up, and it's like, oh, that's what that means.
You might remember the reindeer herder perspective.
Yes. Yes. And it's like being out on the tundra here. We come out here and there's sky and land and, horses instead of reindeer, but that's fine.
Horses, Laura, you were telling Tom and I about a horse session that you had. You curious to tell us about that? And, then after that, let's talk about Cowboy, because that's a great story about that animal story. But will you start by telling us a little bit about your horse session story, just a little bit? We have a request from the audience.
I think, okay. Well, it was Joan did a session with me, and I was supposed to go to my beautiful place, and it was a meadow up in the mountains, knee-high flowers, wildflowers, and there was a herd of horses there. And I remember saying, I'm close to them, I feel like I'm one with them, and so I remember Joan asked me later on, after I spoke quite a while, got the scene set, well, she said, look down at the ground, what do you see? And I said, I have hooves. And so then I later on found out that, she moved me forward to what's one of the most enjoyable times. I was a horse. I was part of them. Well, listening and being part of them, the herd eating. That was I loved doing that. I was a horse, and then I remember Joan said, well, how do you communicate or something? Or I think I told you.
Yeah, you told me.
You didn't ask. It wasn't a lead-in.
It's even a beautiful place.
And I said, well, we communicate with our thoughts telepathically. And I had a little foal and was calling to him, and he came. I was worried over him. It was just like being a human with all the drama. How you've got a child, you have to watch out after it. You're part of this group of people, but you're a horse. And then Joan said, "Well, do you see a cloud?" Yes, And I got on the cloud, and I remember looking down at my feet, and my hooves went through the cloud when I was going on the cloud. And she says, "Well, are you still a horse?" And I said, "Well, I think I'm still a horse, but I'm transitioning. I think I felt like I was part of the cloud then." But that's the first time I'd ever been a horse.
And I have this beautiful image of this big chestnut mare with her legs dangling underneath this cloud and her head sticking out of the top of the cloud and going probably west to east. I don't know.
That is so funny. Or if it's summer, maybe south to north.
South to north, yeah.
So, Dolores' method is just so amazing. And one of the amazing things that she teaches is this idea of surrogate healing. So everybody who's ever taken a class from Dolores Cannon has been taught about this. So you can have two people in a session, the practitioner and then the client, and they can request healing for somebody who's not even there. Normally a family member is the way this works, and the very accepted method. But occasionally others, and occasionally pets. And I don't think, as a matter of fact, I know that I haven't told this story. I don't believe on the forum, on the original Dolores Cannon support forum for practitioners. I don't believe that I've told this. I don't believe I've written an article about it. I think partially because I wanted to wait, because I like to wait, because this story, this thing that happened about a year ago. Mm-hmm. And it's been a year, so I guess it's time to talk about it, because, you wait to see, right? Or you can, anyway. So the story we're getting ready to talk about right now has to do with a dog that lives here at a Pyramid Farm, a big yellow lab, who's my husband Tom's dog, and his name is Cowboy. And he's a sweet, sweet dog, and he and my husband are very close, and I don't think it's too forward to say that this dog means more to my husband Tom than any dog he's ever had. So Cowboy and Tom are very tight. So about a year ago, just out of the blue, a regular day during work at home, I look over and Cowboy's near the wood stove laying, but he hasn't moved for a while. And I'm looking at him and I'm not liking what he's looking like, and I'm not liking his energy. And I go over to him and I ask him what's going on with him, and he tucks his tail and he kind of bends his neck, and he doesn't want to move. And I kind of try to help him up a little bit. I'm like, I don't know what's going on with him. And he's crying, and something is very wrong, very, very wrong, very fast, and nobody's here, and this dog weighs more than 100 pounds. And I'm not sure what to do, but I have a really great vet not far from here, and I managed to get him in the car, and I know we're going straight to the vet. And it doesn't matter if we do this alternative energy healing, just by the way. Most of us still depend on our allopathic and traditional healthcare providers in many ways. We just like to use this other thing as information and as confirmation, and we're partners now. It's not one or the other, that's for sure. So I take Cowboy to the vet, and he gets some blood work done. And we get a very unfortunate diagnosis very quickly. He has a fever, he's in intense pain, and we find out very quickly that Cowboy tests positive for systemic lupus, systemic canine lupus. And I didn't know anything about it. There's two kinds of canine lupus. One is like a skin kind of issue where it's mostly topical and it doesn't really change, their life that way. But this was systemic. It was attacking his organs. It was attacking his whole body. And my vet, as beautiful and wonderful as she was, I could see it in her face. She was quite concerned. And when I went home, I did a small amount of research and very quickly found out that I believe it was 80 to 90% of dogs who are diagnosed with systemic canine lupus are dead within 9 months. I mean, it's that bad. And that's like with steroid treatment. Yeah. I mean, really not a good diagnosis. As a matter of fact, one of the worst that there can be. So I talked to my vet, and she wants to put him on steroids, and I'm thinking, I'm not liking this idea at all. But I also trust my vet, and I'm also, we're going to do what we need to do here. So we do. We put him on the regular medicines, and then we immediately start on the alternative. What's going on here? So Tom and I do a session.
Tom is the client, I'm the facilitator, we do a session for Cowboy. And this is where I get to look at you two ladies and just say how much I love you. So I don't even know how it was that you guys found out. But you guys found out that Cowboy was sick, and I was reeling from this. And Laura and Joni do a session for Cowboy. Now, can you remember that session? Would you like to talk about that session at all? Can you remember some of the details about it?
I was the one who was under, but I remember this, asking like where it came from, and I saw a fence. I couldn't get any more specific than that, but I felt their energy just being so drained and so pain. I think Finn wasn't feeling good either.
Finn is a second dog, and actually, we had two things happen at one time.
Yeah, and we did the session, and we're going through it, and not sure where it's going to go because this is kind of experimental, new for us. But I remember seeing you kneeling down on the floor with the dogs around you, and there were globes of light bouncing around like happy puppies and kitties and bouncing all around all of you. And it was like all of your pets from the past, all of the animals were, like the animal spirits were coming in. Like some people see Jesus, and some people see Michael the Archangel. Some people say the Blessed Virgin. I saw bounding little puppy spirits. They weren't puppies, but I knew they acted like puppies. Those balls of light were energy, and they were all coming in to help. I think they were just bringing their energy in for you and for them. So that was pretty amazing, and we're grateful that whatever we did, if it helped any, that's.
Well, I know it did, and as anybody who practices this work knows, as you do this work, sometimes sessions run into each other, and you forget details. If you don't re-listen. There's only one person in the history of the world who can remember every session detail, and that's Dolores Cannon. And that's not any of us ladies here. No. So Dolores could pull out any detail of any session or anything, but so you guys did a session, and Tom and I did a session. And what we found was that Cowboy was experiencing something for Tom, so that Tom didn't have to experience it. Because, and this happens often with pets, that they occasionally will take over either an experience or pain or etc. For you, or in relation with you, or in tandem with you, etc. And we explored that a little more, and I don't remember the details, but I do remember that we decided it was possible for the experience to be short-lived, that it can absolutely be healed. A few adjustments or changes were decided or agreed upon, and healing was offered. And so healing was offered for your session, which was a surrogate session for Cowboy. So, listen to what we're saying here. So we have two friends in Oklahoma who take some time out of their day, and they lay down, and one goes into trance and connects with a big yellow lab up in Kansas. And then the same thing happens here in Kansas. Tom and I take an evening, and we sit down and we do a session, and mostly what I remember about that's something about a carousel. It was a beautiful carousel experience. I have to ask Tom if he remembers, but healing is granted in both sessions. It's 2 or 3 weeks, and Cowboy's looking better, and I'm talking to my vet, and I start to talk to her about the idea of taking him off of the steroids. And the accepted traditional method and message is to keep him on it, and keep going. And maybe you can have him for a few more months if you're lucky, because most of them are gone within 9 months. And we tapered him off. And she said, now this doesn't normally happen. We don't normally do this. We normally keep them on low-dose steroids for as long as the time they have left, because this is a pretty significant disease.
But Cowboy was looking pretty good. We also, at that time, I have to put a plug in for this, we changed him over to raw meat. I mean, we took him off of any canned, processed, dry dog foods. We put him on raw meat. We went for, the highest quality we thought that, and there's some people are like, are you crazy because of salmonella or other, and compromised immune system, and you're going to give him raw meat? Yeah, I think we're going to do that because his wolf and canine ancestors are calling for this. So, so we get him and the other dogs on raw meat, and it is about 3 weeks later. It's just such an amazing story. 3 weeks later, Tom happens to be at the vet, happens to be there with Cowboy, actually on another errand. I think he's picking up something for another animal. We've got all kinds of animals here at the farm. I'm having a session. I think I get a text, and I look at it, and Tom says, I'm going to have him retested for this systemic lupus. And so he tells us that, I think you should retest him. I think maybe it's gone. Now, my understanding of traditional outlook on systemic canine lupus in the veterinary world is that once you have it, you always have it. And also, once you test positive, you always test positive. And if you're lucky, you have them around for a while. Well, we decided to take the test again, and it was not an inexpensive test. I mean, it was a little under $200. That's, $200 is $200, That'll buy you some groceries, right? So, but we retested Cowboy 3 weeks after his initial test, and it took a while to come back. And I think that phone call was one of the most excited, amazing phone calls I've ever gotten from our vet. Okay. When she said, just no way. You just can't believe it. It's absolutely true. He came back. It's negative. He tested negative for lupus. And she was trained by the biggest vet school here in Kansas. And I don't remember if she said she called them first or what, but she called them right away to say that she had a case where within that small of a time, the dog was reversed on a disease that's considered incurable. And I know that it has to do with what you guys did and what we did as well.
Done using Dolores' method. Well, a combination of things. It's like you say, you use allopathic and homeopathic techniques, and he got hit with both. And he started out probably stabilizing him a bit with the prednisone. You did a session, we did a session. I didn't know what to do for sure, but I just sent love and light, and all these little happy balls of energy came in to help. And then your session, of course, you were so connected with the dog. That had to be very profound to help him heal. And then the change in the diet. So, you're still living on a 3D planet. You still have to do things like that. Eat your vegetables, And it was interesting what you said, too, about the raw meat, in that it's more wholesomely packaged for animals than it is for humans because it's made to be eaten raw.
We were, Laura and Joni stayed here, of course, for dinner tonight. They, joined us for dinner before the radio show, and of course we fed the animals first, and we were talking a little bit about the dogs and the cat's diet, and I was telling them this truly amazing fact. By the way, the vet who, when I told her I was going to feed this dog raw meat while he was immunocompromised, really threw a fit. I mean, she threw a giant fit, and she was quite concerned, as she was being the best vet that she knew how to be, and she was telling me she was concerned about pathogens and bacteria in raw meat, and in a way she had a point, because at the time we were giving kind of grocery store meat until we moved over to some high quality pet food packaged raw meat. And when she saw all of the improvements that Cowboy had, and And she started looking into it, and then she also adopted a puppy herself who was raised on raw meat. That, in combination with watching both Cowboy and Finn, who also had his own immune system thing happen at the same time, she immediately changed her mind and is now the biggest distributor of raw pet food in this county and in this area of Kansas. And what Joan was saying about this raw meat is, and this is for you humans out there to understand, raw grocery store meat, just your regular grocery store meat. Now, we're not talking like butcher or maybe some Whole Foods free range, some different kinds of specialty packaged meat, but your regular, I'm going to go to my case and pull out a package of meat stuff. That stuff is handled in a way that assumes that you're going to cook that meat through to a temperature where certain pathogens are destroyed. They assume that. And there's these tiny little labels on there that says, do that. You must cook this meat to X and X temperature or whatever. So because they do that, they throw these hunks of meat in vats and in places where, I don't even want to go there to think about it, but it's true. They kind of mishandle the butchering process and the meat because they assume, and you are supposed to cook that mishandling out of it, right? Mm-hmm. So here's the interesting thing about this raw food that we feed our animals. It says on there for pet food only consumption, but it's handled in a way that assumes that your pets are going to eat it raw, so it's handled cleaner than your basic grocery store cut of meat. And yet the label says for animal consumption only, when in fact it's handled nicer and cleaner than, your basic grocery store meat, which is kind of crazy.
So did you get the meat at like PetSmart or someplace?
Well, we did it first, something like that, a local pet food store. But then once my vet started, she literally started putting dogs who had skin problems or dogs who had other kind of allergy things or dogs who had whatever. She was just like, well, how about we try this diet?
Maybe that's why he had it.
Well,
his spirit. Oh my goodness!
I'm sure it
volunteered to do that.
Because now all kinds of pets in this area
benefit them.
That's exactly right.
It's amazing how it extends and it extends itself and ripples out.
Mm-hmm. And Dolores, once again, rippling out through the animals,
expands
kingdom.
Yes, it just expands continuously.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool. That's a cool story.
It is a cool story. Well, let's go back to remembering a little bit about Dolores. What was it? I know you wrote something down about Bubbles. What were you saying about Bubbles? You had a good memory of Dolores and Bubbles.
Yes,
I
did. This was after, I think it was the end of level 2. And
level 2 is a QHHT class.
Sorry, yes, level 2. Our class was level 2. Dolores was teaching it. And we all became very close in that class. And one of our fellow practitioners, MJ, and then also Anne, brought these wands at the last day.
Bubble wands.
Bubble wands.
Bubble wands.
Yes.
Like you get at the dollar store for your kids.
They had them wrapped up just in white tissue paper, and we'd all sign cards, and it was just to show our appreciation. And so they started unwrapping them, and everybody was unwrapping them, and then Dolores started singing that. She started saying this, what's that Bubble song? Well, then...
Seriously, the front door just opened while you're talking about Dolores. Did you notice that? The
I
front
feel
door
it.
opened, I thought
I have goosebumps.
the front door opened. Okay.
Go ahead, Dolores. We're talking
Okay.
and so Dolores, everyone else of the staff,
They called the rest of the family up. They called Dolores' kids up, and they called a few of the people from the staff up to the stage. And then Dolores started singing, "I'm forever blowing bubbles." And she didn't blow many because she had trouble getting the lid open. But they were blowing bubbles, and everybody else was standing, and most of us know that part of the song and no more. But Dolores is singing the whole thing. And we come to find out later Dolores used to sing in church and that she was a wonderful singer. And she was just in the moment, and it was a precious moment to see them up there blowing bubbles with these kitty bubble wands,
he's profoundly metaphysical.
Well, at one time, when none of us knew the words to the song, we just sort of hummed along, and she's just in her own little world.
Yeah.
And she has her head up to the ceiling, just singing like a bird, and we all just felt that wonderful love. And so then she carried us through that part of the song, and then everybody knew the last few parts of it, and we joined in again. And then I remember somebody there said, "Well, have you even gotten yours open yet?" And she said, "Oh, no." And everybody just had a good belly laugh about that, because she didn't care about opening it. She just was taking in the moment. And so then she said, this is what they want us to do. They want us to enjoy the moments. Mm-hmm. And she got the mic and she stopped and she said, "This is what it's all about. Enjoy the moments as they come to you." And so, again, Dolores was teaching us lessons. Whatever came out of Dolores' mouth, she was always teaching. You know that, Candace. Mm-hmm. And Joni, you do too. But I always remember her just having her bubble wand wrapped up in her tissue paper. Everybody else was doing their wands, and there was bubbles everywhere. And she was just singing, just like, beautiful. It was just it was so much joy.
Yeah, you just couldn't take your eyes off Dolores. She was, like you say, in the moment, just a moment full of joy. And we were all so happy to share in that moment, and grateful that MJ and Ann had the idea.
Yes, and we all got up, we held hands, and we formed a big circle, and they passed the mic around, and we all said how we felt about her. And that was really a gift, I think, for ourselves to be able to express that to Dolores.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was hard to do it without choking up. We had to hold her up. She was starting to get a little weak. You. Oh. And I'm there trying to think, what could I say to this woman who gave me my life back too?
Right.
What can I say? And I know I said something, but everybody was pretty much in the same. Candace, you were at that circle. You remember that?
It was amazing. And actually, MJ's in our chat room right now, so y'all can say you can directly say thank you to MJ. Yeah, that was amazing. Dolores liked the little things, didn't she?
Yes. Yes, she did.
I think she did. Yeah. She wasn't foofy, and I remember seeing her in the same shirt so many times. A few shirts she liked, and she'd wear those, and it's just like, I'll see a video, and she wore that at the UFO conference or something, and it's like, I'm so familiar with that look. It's just delightful. You can see, and we're so blessed that she came during an age of technology where all the information and all her presence and her delivery and everything is on the videos and in her books, and it can get out to so many people. Where in the past, like Edgar Cayce, he wasn't even published much until after Dolores got started. So what we have now is amazing to reach people all over the world. So and I can't believe we're part of it. What are two old ladies from Oklahoma doing being a part of it?
The most amazing metaphysical, spiritual thing you can
I know why. Because of your hearts. Because you're great big hearts. We say that over and over again. People say, "What do you need to practice this method?" It's an open heart and a willingness to help people, and really just care for people. Yeah. And if you're in it for some sort of grandiose reason or for ego gratification or whatever, it's just not going to work out for you. No, and Dolores will always say they won't work. They won't work for you. Oh, okay. Wait a second. So MJ says, talk about Dolores' microphone getting kinked, and it was the way they communicated to her they were present.
That's right.
Dolores' microphone was messing up all the time. It would be straight. They would straighten it out. They would, spend all this time getting the mic and the sound and everything set up perfectly, and somehow it would always end up in a knot. And it was so cute. And we would be in one of the conferences or whatever, and we'd be in there, and everybody's phone would go wonky. We had 3 people around us. Their phones went dead for the cameras. They had full batteries. They charged them up. The phones are going dead. The lights are flashing on and off. There was a storm or something, and what was that happened when the cloud went over or something?
there was a storm or something, and they had to hunker down in one of the conferences, and it just kind of blew past because it's just all the energy. It's amazing. I think at one of the UFO conferences, some people went to dinner, and they saw one. It's like, really?
Getting back to those mics, the mic was always, every time she would lay it out there in a straight line, we'd all take a bathroom break. I mean, it wasn't very long, and she'd come back and she'd pick it up and show it to everybody. See, this is what they do to me. This is what they do to me. She got a kick out of it every time.
Yeah. I think she did too. You know, one of the things I like is the story that she would talk about how the SC would knock on the walls. Did any of that happen?
Yes, in my session. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, talk about that.
Well, we were doing the interview, and then they started knocking on the walls, and I this was really out of the box for me, just sitting there and hearing all these knocks, and Dolores says, "Oh, they're ready. You need to go to the restroom. We need to get started." And I thought, okay, I'm going to do just what they said. Okay. So I scampered in there to use the restroom, and I laid down, and Dolores started, and
they were knocking.
They continued to knock.
You can hear it on the tape.
Yeah, they continued to
hear it on the recording
for a while, and so I'm a believer. I'm a believer. It spooked me almost because I didn't really know what was going to happen, and then you hear all these knocks from all over, every direction. It wasn't just from one side. It was the ceiling, all the walls, and then Dolores just nonchalantly says, "Oh, we're ready for you. We need to go. We need to go to the restroom."
Isn't that interesting? I had my very last session, actually.
Had that happen to you?
Oh, my. Yes, but probably no more significant than just my very last session of last week. In the middle of the session, and he's in the SC part. He's in the part where he's answering questions, and he's supposed to be as deep and connected as ever. And there is this giant knock. I mean, knock, 1, 2, 3, and I look up because I'm looking to see if somebody at the door or whatever, and no, it's a glass door. I can see, there's got a little curtain over it, but I can see if anyone's there. There's nobody there, but that is where the knocks seem to come from. And the client actually, because he was in a dual place, he knew he was laying in bed having this session just like you did, Laura. But at the same time, he's still having this session. He actually says to me something like, "Well, Candace, if you have someone at the door, you should go.
Oh my gosh.
You should go answer that." And I looked over, and I know, and there's no one there. And I said, and then I told him actually exactly that. I said, "There's no one at the door. This is what happened with Dolores, and it happens with other practitioners. When we hear this knocking, that is, the energies and those coming through, ready here to help you." So you just take that knocking, and you say, "This is what it is," and you help propel your client to more, to face and to accept and to, receive. And that's where you get those things, isn't it? Achieve. Wait, tell me what your words are again. Say it again.
Ask, believe, allow, and receive.
There you go.
That's it. Words to live by.
There you go.
Yeah. Well,
you were saying something about Dolores' hugs and her soft cheeks.
Oh, when Dolores would hug Laura would walk in the room, Dolores would beam. She'd just lighten up, she'd smile, and she'd, "Oh, there's my angel." She would put her arms around and lock her fingers together and pull her so close. And I was lucky enough to get some of those too. And she could do a bear hug. This little old lady, this great grandma, could put a bear hug on you. But then I kissed her cheek once. I wasn't very bold, and I kissed her cheek. So like you were embraced by. You were just embraced. You were just enveloped in this energy and this hug and the softness and the love that's in that hug. It was amazing, and it was such a privilege to see her every time. Mm-hmm. And I know Laura was concerned the last time we saw her that it was, that she may not be with us as long as we thought she would be. We just you think somebody like that's going to live forever. And she told everybody that. I think she's doing so much on the other side without the impediment of a body, of an old lady's body, that she can reach so many people in so many ways. Heck, she messed with my Kindle. I mean, nobody messes with my Kindle, and Dolores can anytime she wants. So that was pretty interesting. How she comes up, and like you say, the clients come up and they say, I don't really understand what this is, but I have to do this. And it's like, okay, well, and then you visit with them on the phone, you try to answer their questions, prepare them a little bit, and then you do the interview. And the thing is, in the interview, you're not stepping on eggshells like a family member would be or a close friend would be. You can say anything you want. You can ask anything you want. And so it helps them bring it forward and confront some things that other people wouldn't challenge them on. And you can say that. We're not telling you what to do, but what would happen if? Well, why do you think that's going on? And how's that working for you? That's Dolores. How's that working for you? And famous last words. Famous words.
How's that working out for you? Hanging on to that.
Yep.
Hanging on to that anger. Well, it's not working very well. Well, throw that rock out of your backpack.
So you kind of prepare that this is what can happen. Do you want to get that rock out of your backpack? Mm-hmm. Do you want to get that weight off your shoulders? Do you want to still have that anger? You can hold on to that anger. Okay, well, anger's winning. You're losing. You're sick. So what are you going to do? It's your choice. You can really, really let it go. Who was it? Was Dolores had the client who said, but if I forgive my wife, she'll win? And Dolores said, well, if you die, she wins. So, so what do you want? Do you want to let it go? Forgive and let it go? Forgive doesn't mean it was okay what they did. That doesn't mean that. It means it happened. It was what it was. And you're saying, okay, that's what it is. It's over. It's done. I'm moving on. I've learned. I'm moving on.
Yep.
Yeah. And so it's not like you're one up because you have to forgive somebody because you're right and they're wrong. No, it's more of a let it go, release it. Okay, you got what you got from it. It is what it was. It's gone.
One of the last messages I've personally got from Dolores was, you can move forward a lot faster if you're not looking backwards at all.
That's right. Absolutely.
If you're hit, it's like riding a horse. When you ride a horse, you put your head and your face where you're going, not where you've come from. Otherwise, you're turning around and going backwards.
That's why being present is so important. I mean, we've had clients, and they would be so stuck in the anger and bitterness from the past, and it was a lousy past. It really was. But they were so stuck with being angry about it and still every time they get wound up, every time they talk about it. And then they're looking to the future. They have all these aspirations and dreams. They want to do this and that, which would be wonderful. And they're missing the present moment and not seeing the blessings they have right in front of them. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's just like, okay, well, that's good to want to do that. And, this thing is done. There's nobody, they can't undo what happened. You can't undo, but you can let it go. You can let it go.
Yeah, your reaction to it.
Your reaction to it. And it's your choice. And you think you don't have a choice. You do have a choice.
You're talking about hugs. I have to tell you this. So my memory of Dolores and a hug was something a little different than yours. So, you, Laura, and Dolores had such an incredible bond. And I love you guys both so much for that and so many other things. But let me tell you, so when I took Dolores' class in 2008, and I showed up in 2009 for the next class, and already had started with her blessing, the support forum. So, I sort of she kind of knew me, right? She knew my name and everything. So I came to level 2. And, of course, I'd been thinking, doing, practicing nothing more than her work, like, for this whole year. And when I saw her, I couldn't help myself. I ran up to her, and I just hugged her. And she didn't hug me back the way I didn't have the quite the same thing. She actually, I'll never forget it, because she was sweet. She was sweet. She looked at me, but she didn't hug me back with a bear hug like that. She didn't hug me back. She did hug me back. But here's what she said. She went, "Oh, you're squishing me." Yeah, you're squishing me.
Oh, my goodness. I can't imagine that, because she was the one who had this. Oh, my goodness. She was strong. She was really strong. She had to be to do all she did. I mean, you got to figure, even a young person would get exhausted traveling all over, talking constantly, doing the class.
I don't know how she
writing
did it.
the books. I mean, really, it would have taken a normal person 150 years to do what she did.
I don't know how she did it with all of those books. I was blessed to be able to assist many, many classes with her. And when the day was over and we eat a little dinner and get back to the hotel room, and it was like conk, hit the hay. That's when she would go, start writing more, and editing other books.
Yes.
In her 80s.
In her 80s.
How did she do that?
After the week before, she was in China doing the same thing.
I know. It's, talk about, having a passion, a purpose, and support behind the scenes. She must have, right?
And it wasn't easy. I mean, she didn't have an easy life.
No, she didn't.
She did not have an easy life, and she had a lot of other responsibilities. But she kept this and developed it, and it takes a lot of guts to step outside the box when people around you are not wanting you to do that.
Right.
And she did it, and she did it for us. And
she was a rebel.
She was
ahead of her time.
She was.
She just knowing Dolores and being fortunate enough to have taken her classes, just as a woman, gives me strength. Doesn't it, you, Candace?
Oh, my gosh, does it ever.
I mean, she's just pioneered everything. She broke the glass ceilings of for
many UFO research and Nostradamus research and the hypnosis research. She has accolades from all over the world. They wanted her to go to Mongolia. Speaking of Mongolia, they had invited her there, and she said, "I can't go to Mongolia. Come see me in China."
I actually love that story. She told that story very well. Mm-hmm. They wanted me to go to Mongolia. But I told them they had to come to China. What I loved about Dolores was, what I loved about Dolores? She didn't care what people thought about her.
They didn't.
She was going to go towards her path, towards her goal, and do what she needed to do, what she was driven to do, what she knew she had to do, what her curiosity brought her to, and she didn't care what other people said. And she was one of the bravest people I've ever met in my life. And if I have any bravery in me at all to continue on my path, it's because of the examples that she has provided.
We all do. We all do.
We got the strength from her. And when we need help, we're in a session and things, what do you see? Nothing. We do. We call them in. Dolores, come on, help, Dolores. And eventually you're able to, get something. Mm-hmm. But, that first moment of panic when they don't see anything, it's like, oh, gosh, another one. Go ahead. I was just going to say, Joni's talking about sitting in session with a client, and sometimes it doesn't go like the textbook, a write-up of it all. But here's the thing that we've all found. Even before Dolores passed on, I found that if I just took a breath and I asked myself, what would Dolores do? Mm. Or if I just imagined Dolores in the room with me, it was like bringing forth her energy. And then on top of her energy, the practitioners who we share with, who help us in that community of support together.
Yes.
So I always say, even to those who are brand new at this, when you're sitting down, you are not sitting there by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Dolores is with you. She's almost always on your right hand side. I don't know why, but it's the right hand side. And the rest of us in the community are there with you. And if you kind of think about that and accept that, suddenly everything, it's not really up to you. It's kind of, you're just like a spark plug or something, you know?
And it comes through, and they use your body to ask the questions. That's what, I've had 2 clients now that are level 1 dedicated practitioners. They took the online class and just finished it last month. But one of them asked me about, well, do you ever get nervous being a practitioner asking questions? And I said, well, the way I see it, and I think I talked to Dolores about this one time, and she put it this way, or if you think you're really thinking of all those questions, you know, let me tell you, they're helping you. So just think of yourself as a vessel and ask them to come through and use your body to ask the questions. And I told my 2 clients that are practitioners that, and they said, that's a good way of asking, or a good way of thinking of it, is thinking in that term.
We've been calling Dolores since we first started practicing. You know, just there. I think all of us. I think we all have, just like you. We didn't wait till she crossed over. We were right in the beginning. What would Dolores do? You know, I'm going to get a T-shirt, WWDD.
I think something's interesting happening, though. What do you think? I think that, and I have a tone in my right ear as I'm saying this.
Yeah.
So I have this thought that somehow, you know how Dolores was so special and amazing and like a pioneer for us, of course. I keep having this thought that she's like being like the pioneer on the spirit side too.
I believe
back
totally
back towards us here, helping us. Doesn't it feel like that to you?
She's very busy. She seems very busy.
I think, and she can be in so many places at once.
Yeah.
And I think maybe even spirits some don't realize. You know, you have this one there and this one there, but she's just rabble-rousing all over the globe. I mean, really, you have practitioners all over the globe saying Dolores was here, Dolores came through. It's like, well, she can do that now.
I have a thought. I mean, most of us will experience a lifetime, and then when we cross over, we'll have a life review, and then we'll learn about the lessons that we agreed to in this life. And then we just rest, we move forward, or think about reincarnating. Dolores is busy still, I think, achieving goals from the other side, still continuing to give love and guidance to all.
I think you're right. I think she's just been a special woman in the physical and on the spirit side right now. I really do. I think you know, her passing, and I don't know. You tell me. I think it might have. Her conscious mind might have been a little surprised too. I think she really believed it when she said she was going to live to be 100 or 103, and she didn't quite make it. But I think what's happened is she's so valuable where she is. I have this. You tell me if this sounds right to you, okay? And this is just now kind of coming while that tone was in my ear. I really, really see her. You know, some people go into the veil or cross the veil, and they go way into the spirit side, like if it's a pool. You know, they're going all the way into the deep end or whatever. But it's like she's just over.
That's right.
It feels like she's just over, doing something right there at that line.
Right.
What do you
right
think?
at that interface. That makes sense. I mean, in a way, we can conceive of her being in an interface between, you know, our dimension, our 3D dimension, and the forces above it. Like in a quantum sense, she is interfacing because she hasn't gone off on her next. Well, she may have a next life. I mean, you can do both, but.
Because you're multidimensional.
Right. You're multidimensional. And another thing that I appreciate that she's done is she's brought so many authors to my notice that have given me information that I can pass on to help my clients in other ways.
Absolutely. So we sell books, we pass out books. Really great authors.
Great authors.
So it was
very good, yes.
It was wonderful. For those of you who don't know, when Dolores couldn't get her books published, she just flat started her own publishing company. So that was our Dolores. She wasn't going to be told no, and I love that about her. Well, ladies, we've been chatting for a good 2 hours. And sun comes up early at a Cherriman farm. You know we have a rooster, right?
Yes, we see.
Yeah, that rooster's name is Flappy. I did not name him. But Flappy starts crowing. Flappy starts crowing long before the sun rises, so I think this might be a good time to wind it down. Can you please tell our listeners, lady, how they may find you on the internet or whatever? Laura?
Well, the DoloresQHHT.com. And I also have a website, QuantumHealingOKC.com.
That's where you can find Laura. How about you, Joan?
Oh, what's my website?
Oh, you can go to the Dolores Cannon QHHT.
Dolores.
It's Dolores Cannon.
QHHT.com. And we're in Oklahoma, and we both take clients. She can take them during the week.
Because I didn't put her last name down.
That might help. I work, so I generally get clients on the weekend, but since she can do them during the week, then she's available for some people who maybe have days off during the week.
We're getting clients from Texas and from Tulsa,
and Dallas, and from Western Oklahoma.
I'm always sending them down your way too. Yeah, absolutely. So, I want to ask you. I love that black and white picture of you on.
Oh, that's an old one.
It's
but I don't
so
have
beautiful.
any pictures.
It's so well. I got a couple of you and the horse and the donkey today. So
I have aged considerably.
I think we're going to put some of those on the YouTube replay here. So, but on DoloresCannonQHHT.com, there are photo listings of practitioners all around the world.
Yeah, and probably update mine.
That's all right. Yeah, we'll see if you like the one of you and the horse. It was pretty cute, but you're giving my Mama Bell a kiss. But we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank all of you who are listening this evening, all of you who love and appreciate Dolores, whether you're listening live or in the archives and further into time. If you'd like to find out about me and my practice, you can go to newearthjourney.com, and once again, to find a dedicated practitioner of Dolores' method near you, please go to DoloresCannonQHHT.com. We love and we miss Dolores, but we know that she is here with us, and we just want to say thank you and love you. And next week, we're going to have an amazing show with the amazing Alba Wyman of Miami, Florida. We're going to have a Halloween show, and I think you might be interested in hearing some of the stories that our lovely Alba might have to say. It'll be perfect timing for Halloween. So thank you. I want to thank N5D once again for sponsoring and allowing us to speak with you all out there about Dolores Cannon, QHHT. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Joni. I love you.
Thank you,
love you
too.
Good night, everyone. Good night, everyone in the chat room. Good night, MJ. Good night, Barbara.
Good night,
we love you.
We love you.